FalloutEquestria Heroes by No One. Chapter 23. Time Off. Love does not begin and end the way we seem to think it does. Love is a battle. Love is a war. Love is a growing up. I kicked Flair off the whore, then I hooked my metal foreleg around the other stallion and lobbed him out of the door. Perhaps I threw a bit too forcefully because he hit the opposite wall and slid down in a daze. After slamming the door so hard it cracked the frame, I spun and focused my rage on the smirking Pegasus. "You should see the look on your face," he said in between giggle fits. "Priceless!" He just laughed there on the floor, kicking his legs and flapping his wings. He was high as fuck. So I kicked him in the gut and turned his laughter into a gasp for breath.
"What the fuck, Flair? Dash? Really?"
I couldn't give a damn about his stallion whore friend. He was allowed to fuck whoever he felt like, but going back on Dash? Didn't he give me a big speech in the facility about overcoming addiction? And now this? He didn't respond right away, so I took a step closer.
"Mama, don't!"
Serenity cried from behind me.
"You're hurting him!"
Good! He was supposed to be in the mode I was going to follow. A way to prove to myself that I could kick my addiction by looking at his example. "Listen to your daughter!" Flair scrambled away and flapped into a corner.
"Why, Flair? I thought you said you kicked this! You're going to relapse for the sake of a bastard
Yeah, fuck you, Hired! He held his stomach where I kicked him. "I fought for you, bled for you, killed for you. High Stakes is an idiot, but you're not much better." He spoke fast and loud, and I wondered if he could even control the inflection of his voice. "High Stakes, Hired Gun, Serenity, Mr. House, Enclaves, the Steel Rangers, the Reconstruction Center, Simple Heart, Timber, Brittle Hoe, Bitter Steel. It's too much. Something had to give." He gasped. "Something. I needed its help. It's too much. It was Dash or I break down." I wasn't sure how much of what he said was true. It was a lot of stress, but I honestly thought that this was about High Stakes more than anything. It was easier when High Stakes betrayed him, but that message shifted the blame to just about everyone, including Flair.
"Back up! You're a stallion! Act like one! You're better than—"
He cut me off. "Hired, give me your Maddox gun is telling me to quit?" I grit my teeth and took the insult. "Yeah, that makes sense. You're a high—"
"Shut up, both of you!"
Somehow Serenity stood between us, though I wasn't sure when she got there.
"Flair, ya go take a shower. Silver, we're gonna go see Hayes. Both of ya are gonna be part of the rest of the day, and tomorrow when ya cool down ya can talk." I don't think she was allowed to decide that. "I'm serious. It's late and I don't want ya two bickering all night."
"Sure." Flair grinned, clearly tweaked out of his little pony mind. "I'll just have to go to apologize to the Mustangs for damage to their property and—"
"No horse!"
I glared at Flair.
"Not in my room."
He just pouted. "No fun." My glare seemed to bring him down. "Oh, well, fine then. Tomorrow with the talking. I'm looking forward to it. No, wait, the opposite of that. Or not." The urge to kill him was rising. It was lucky for him that Serenity was there. "Well, go now," he said. This was just sucking. With a little bit of annoyance I started to leave until I remembered walking around the city with a BEL might just be a bad idea. Reluctantly I set the weapon near the door and glared over at Flair.
"If you touch this, I will kill you. A lot."
Yeah, Flair said. which really raised my confidence and my spirits. I spun around, walked out, and slammed the door. Words cannot express how angry I was, but the closest guess I can think of is that it felt like I'd taken another dosage of rage. I stomped my hoof once and stared at the imprinted mate on the floor. It wasn't enough, though. I don't know why it upset me so much to see him regress like that, but it really did.
Mama, come on. Thiese is waiting.
Yeah, that was good at least. Serenity tugged on my leg and I reluctantly looked up and shook the anger out of my head. I could deal with it later. For now, I had to see Thiese. To see how I felt. It was important. I started walking down the hall. Slowly at first, but steadily picking up speed. How long had it been since I'd seen the alicorn? It must have been over a week, but I couldn't seem to figure out exactly how many days. Too many, of that I was sure. Hopefully she would even want to see me. I did turn her down, and I wasn't exactly prettier now. She also seemed nice, but she was also annoyingly gorgeous and her standards would have to be above my scarred hide. It was clear that I'd made a mistake by turning her down before, but I could rectify that. We just had to keep it slow. Give us both time to adjust. That makes sense, right? Well, it would have to, because that was my plan and I was sticking to it. Of course, when I was deep in thought, I wasn't looking where I was going and ran face first into Starscream. Well, it would have been face first if I wasn't a head taller than him. Oh, hired! He took a step back and retracted his sharp wings. I must have surprised him. So you are back. It's not just a rumor. Some of the Thiese stationed here were betting on you if you'd survive.
Of course Mama would,
Serenity said haughtily from beside me.
Nothing could kill her.
My thoughts exactly, little one. He smiled sweetly at my daughter before turning his head to me. So I owe you a drink. I'm quite a bit richer now.
Thanks.
I really hoped that wasn't him hitting on me.
Maybe another time. My day off. Need to see some pony.
Wait.
Quick question first. You hiring? I mean the hotel, not the Thiese.
Hurley still needed a job. Yes, I believe so. If you have a friend who wants a job, it can be arranged. So long as she doesn't mind serving drinks. There. Something went right. The day was not a total loss. With a nod, I continued back on my way. With a sheepish grin, he quickly moved out of the way. I'll have to speak to you later, though, he said as I was halfway past him. That was more than a little annoying, but I turned to him anyway and raised an eyebrow. About your Pegasus friend.
What did he do?
My voice was low and it was my intention to be threatening. He has been ordering quite a bit on your name. Drugs, whores, alcohol. From the Mustangs and Galatians mostly. Which makes it more expensive. I'll have to take it out of your pay, unfortunately, unless you can convince him to pay. My eye twitched just a little bit. Are you okay?
I'm going to murder him,
I hissed through clenched teeth. Well, I'm afraid that won't pay your bill.
It'll be worth it.
The amiable cyborg alicorn just shook his head at my display. Maybe I was just being a little bit childish about the whole affair, but that was pretty much par the course for me. Whatever you say. He smirked and nodded down the hall where the elevator was waiting for me. Oh, he said as me and Serenity passed him. One more thing.
What?
Okay, so I was getting more than a little pissed off. I still need that report about what happened. Seriously? Have fun. He laughed and trotted off. I wasn't sure if he was enjoying my discomfort or actually thought these tedious reports were funny. Well, the joke would be on him if he expected whatever I wrote to be halfway legible. So I, with my bad mood, and Serenity with her fruitless attempt to cheer me up with smiles, entered the elevator. Elevator technology was still kind of strange to me, but whatever. So long as the cable didn't snap and send us tumbling to the first floor. Though it would have gotten us there quicker, as the elevator was infuriatingly slow. Not to mention quiet. When we eventually reached the first story, I stormed out of the elevator, through the main hall of the BS casino, and out the doors. The sun was just starting to set in the west, so I came out of the building to look at the bright orange sky beyond the buildings and walls of Thiese. It was sort of beautiful to see, even if I didn't get a good look with so much in the way. It didn't do much to put me in a good mood. It reminded me too much of fire. We descended into the tunnels below Thiese from the secret entrance in the east side slums. No longer did the tunnels remind me of the darkness and whispered promises. The trip through the black hell that was the eastern tunnel was a thing of the past, and while I would always carry the scars from it, it was no longer something that haunted me. Not now that I knew what caused the visions. When the orb was a mystery, dark and powerful, it hurt more. And knowing the truth, or at least part of the truth, helped. That all being said, I doubt you could pay me enough to journey back there. Which was a shame because I had made a promise to journey down there and find it no less. I didn't plan on doing that right then, so I kept walking. By then I'd already memorized the path to Platinum Haze's orphanage. So long as the dim lights above us didn't fail, and so long as no path were caved in, I would be able to get there. The tunnels really were amazing, an interlocking web of passages that connected all of Thiese. They seemed to spread out infinitely. 1,000 different paths, 1,000 unexplored corridors. So the tunnels were populated, because they were safe and secure and provided much to scavenge. That was only a small fraction of the entire mass. So much of the tunnels were unexplored. Maybe because some of the lower levels were framed in dirt and incomplete, or because large sections lacked power. Who knew what treasures were hidden in these uncharted catacombs? Who knew which mysteries lay dormant? Hopefully, I never would. The reconstruction center had filled me with more mysteries, catacombs, and hidden dangers than I ever wanted or needed. It didn't help that both were built by, or at least paid for and supervised, by Walkirk. It seems everything that Stallion touched turned to rust, decay, and death. Of course, considered the world all but ended, the same could go for any pony who lived before the war. It was strange to think that ponies must have built these tunnels. Real, living and breathing ponies 200 years ago had carved under the city to make a home. Or at least that was what Walkirk had promised. It was supposed to be a fallout center, the world's largest stable. Instead, it became the world's largest tomb. What would those ponies have thought, the ones who built this place, to know their years of hard work had accomplished nothing? That despite the blood and sweat they had poured into this place, nothing had been preserved except their failure. A vast network of tunnels and caverns, and would-be homes and schools and hospitals, an underground city made for the residents of Thiese, and all that was left of the promise were ruined halls and lights that barely worked. It was a depressing thought, but a necessary one. Sometimes it was easy to forget the ponies that came before. Most every pony who lived knew that the old world burned in balefire, but the scope was hard to imagine. How many ponies could have lived in these tunnels? Hundreds? Thousands? Millions? The scale was above and beyond anything I could imagine, and this was just one city in a sparsely populated country. How many cities burned in Equestria itself? How many millions died that day? Sometimes I wondered if pony kind still existed. Yes, we were technically ponies, but as a race we were dead. We were a shambling corpse of a race stumbling around looking for one last thing to do before we kill each other off. Like maggots that eat at the flesh of a corpse, we as ponies only existed to feed off the remains of our former glory. To suck the buildings dry, to scavenge the flesh and technology from the bones of the corpse of our culture. And when our meal ran out, when we scavenged the last wire and gun and light, when the flesh was gone and not even bone marrow existed to feed on, we would die off for good, after living a mere 200 years longer than we should have. I hated these tunnels. Whenever I came down, here my mind traveled to a world 200 years dead and made me sink. These thoughts just made my head hurt. It was better to ignore the past, keep moving, and survive. It was the only way. Maybe the world had died. Maybe our race had died. But I was still alive, and I was going to survive. For the second time that day, I was so lost in thought I wasn't watching where I was going. I tripped on a fallen and cracked statue as I turned a corner and fell face first into the metal grates that made up the floor.
Mama!
Serenity ran over to me head and started to shake it.
Are you awake? Were you sleepwalking? You were so quiet, I was sure you were sleepwalking. I wasn't,
I mumbled, blinking up at the dim light above me. The glowing tube blinked for a second and looked like it nearly went out.
I'm good.
I looked around the hallway, still tumbled over on my side. On the other side of the wall was a simple wooden door with a plaque that had the word "Wall" written on it. It looked really familiar.
Well, let's get going then. For your fall asleep for real.
She tugged at me in an attempt to help me it. It might have been effective were she not tiny, and I not massive.
Come on. Wait.
She stopped pulling at me and let me get up myself.
I need to see something.
I walked over to the door and studied the plaque. On the golden background, the black words "Wall" was clearly visible. But if I looked closer, I briefly lifted my eye patch so my cybernetic eye could assist. Then the faint outline of letters that had fallen off and faded were still barely visible. Walkirk. The door said Walkirk. Looking back at the broken statue that had tripped me, I noticed that, if it had still been standing, it would have been remarkably similar to the statue that adorned the fountain in the center of Thiese.
What is it, Mama?
Serenity asked. I should have responded, but something struck me about this door. About this place. Ever so carefully I pressed the flat of my hoof against the door. Then kicked. The door gave way in a shower of splinters which made Serenity gasp and run behind me for cover.
Sorry.
I walked through the door.
Have to see something.
The room was marginally more preserved than most in the wasteland and much more ornate. The wallpaper would have been fancy if it weren't stained and peeling, and the desks that took up most of the room would have been a marvelously thing with its golden outline, had the desk not cracked down the middle, leaving the right half collapsed, and the left only standing because it was leaning on the right. In order to walk over the desk, I had to carefully step around the countless papers strewn across the floor, as if some pony left in a hurry. As I walked, I tried to read them, but the words were smudged and paper stiff and ready to crumble. Off to the side was a large full-length mirror. As I passed it, I couldn't help but look. It was a strange picture, seeing me reflected there in the center of the room. The room was a fancy, if slowly decaying, picture of the old world. And there was most certainly a pony of the one that came after. Scarred and broken and walking through ruins in order to find something to feed upon so I could survive one more day. I didn't belong here, the reflection seemed to say, but yet there I was, treading through the murky waters of the past.
Mama, what are you doing?
Right. I had stopped to think. That was getting annoying. I kept getting lost in thoughts as of late.
Looking.
I carefully walked around to the other side of the broken desk. Besides a single broken lamp, the desk was completely empty. No doubt whatever papers were on it found their way to the floor. Carefully I scanned the desk and noticed a few intact drawers on the sides that hadn't completely collapsed. Upon opening them, I found the first 3 to be completely empty. The last one, however, was different. It was completely empty like the others, but being close to it made my shoulder burn. That could only mean something magical. I hefted the drawer out of its socket and placed the whole thing on the desk, studying it intently. Serenity got bored of waiting and ran across the room, disturbing the papers I had attempted to avoid, and jumped onto the desk. She poked the drawer a few times before giving me a confused look.
Magic! I can feel it!
But what kind of magic was the real question? Apart from the fact that something about it was magical, I couldn't figure much else out.
Huh.
Serenity prodded the drawer and lifted herself up to get a better look inside.
Oh!
She used her magic, and a few seconds later I heard a pop as she lifted the bottom of the drawer out in a pink magical field.
False bottom.
She grinned.
And there's a magical something. Look!
Sure enough, when I looked into the drawer with the bottom removed, I saw a thin purple glowing shield covering where the false bottom was before. Underneath it was a small binder of papers, apparently secret-like. I knew from past experiences I wasn't going to get through the magical field without a lot of ordnance, or I had the particular magical it was looking for. So instead, I flipped the shelf upside down, slammed my hoofs through the bottom of the shelf, and took the papers out that way. Whoever designed this system was not very bright. The papers were all perfectly preserved in a hard plastic binding. With all the care I could muster with my large clumsy hoofs, I set the documents before me. There were 4 in total, but I noticed on the back of the binder it listed more. He must have taken some with him when he went... wherever it was he went. As I started to read the first of the documents, I realized I already knew what it was about. It was a carefully detailed document about what happened to Simpleheart, how he became what he was. There was also a long section about Baptista's betrayal, as well as numerous quoted reports about who she could have been working for and who her no allies were. The final section said it was going to detail her fate, which is why I only skimmed the rest and went straight for that. The problem was it said nothing, but told me to refer to a collaborating report. Which I did, as that report was right there. Reading through it, I instantly got bored, which was impressive considering it was about spies and subterfuge. Maybe it would have been interesting if the spies were looking for interesting information, but instead they were looking for some book. Apparently it had some cool spells on it or something, and was a huge secret. It must have been important because according to the records he spent a lot of money just to have a single pony read it. Not even steal, just read once. Once I got to the section about Baptista, I found it referred me to yet another document.
Mama, are you okay? You're staring at that thing and we need to go.
Yeah, I closed the reports and shoved them into my saddlebags. I could always read the rest later.
I'm fine, let's go.
After pushing away from the desk, I got up and walked back towards the door. This time I didn't care if I disrupted the mess of paper, and I didn't bother to look at the mirror for some more philosophical conundrum. Fuck philosophy. It was just another remnant of the past trying to scratch its way back to the surface, and all it did was make you realize how much everything sucked. I stopped at the door and took a look back into the room. There was something I was missing. I wasn't sure what, but there was something.
What was all that, Mama?
Serenity asked as we continued down the hall.
Nothing important to us.
The documents felt heavy in my bags.
Just old world shit. House might want it.
Like everything else in the tunnels, it was just the old world coming back to haunt the new. The tunnels were as still as silent as they everywhere, and there was nothing to listen to but our steady breathing and hoof steps. Maybe it wasn't so bad the ponies down here died. Maybe it was a mercy. Ponies were liable to go insane down here. Of course the same could be said for stables. Maybe I was just trying to reassure myself that what had happened wasn't as monstrous as it had seemed. We walked down a set of stairs to where Platinum Haze lived, and it was then I started to hear voices. Angry voices. Without so much as a second thought, I started to run. After turning a corner, I saw a disturbing scene. Platinum Haze. When I saw her at first, I almost missed everything else going on. She was just too beautiful. Was standing in a defensive position with an opaque blue bubble shield encompassing her. The more pressing issue was the 15 or so gun-toting ponies surrounding her yelling demands. The leader was a short white unicorn with a long blonde mane and a rising sun for a cutie mark. She started to hush the crowd with a wave of her hoof.
Serenity, take cover!
The little filly frowned and nodded before scurrying back behind the corner we turned. Just as I started to get subtlety ready, my eyes met Platinum Haze's. To my surprise, she shook her head. She was in danger, though. Why wouldn't she want help? I heeded her wishes, but my stomach twisted in anxiety.
You,
the mare challenged the alicorn with a look,
have taken foals that belong to Celestia's vision. I command you to return them to where they belong.
I had remembered Haze spoke of her partner traveling to where the remnants of Celestia's vision after Karkov's zebra counterattack were and bringing back the foals. It should have been expected that move wouldn't be without consequence.
We apologize.
Her voice seemed to boom across the room and her eyes were glowing.
But we cannot. The foals we have taken were parentless and without guidance. If their parents are still alive, we will give the foals up to them, if their relation can be proven. In addition, we have asked each and every foal if they wish to stay with us or return, and all agreed to stay. We will ask again, but will not return any foal who does not wish to go. No, you will give them up.
The mare floated up her pistol threateningly.
I will not allow them to be with an abomination such as you. We are sorry you feel that way in regards to us, but we cannot abide by your request.
Her voice echoed one more and the sounds of cocking guns was the reply.
Please.
Her booming voice faded, turning to normal.
Do not do this. We beg of you. You are making a mistake. No, you are.
A single bullet slammed into the shield. The rest of the ponies didn't fire. Platinum Haze's horn adopted a second and third layer of glowing energy, and suddenly a light blue field wrapped over all 15 pony weapons. There was a brief tug of war with each weapon simultaneously, but the blue won over and Haze pulled every weapon away, turned them around, and pointed them at the attackers. There was a collective gulp as the group looked shocked. The white pony in particular looked like she was sweating bullets as she looked down the barrel of her own pistol. Haze's voice returned to its booming tone.
We warned you, but you did not heed.
Every single weapon in the room cocked, and I was fairly sure one of the ponies wet themselves in fear.
You will regret this decision.
All at once, Haze detached the ammo feed from every weapon and removed every chambered bullet. There was a collective sigh of relief. It turned to more of a annoyed groan though when Haze bent the barrels of the weapons in such an impressive feat of magic, it made my shoulder burn so hot I almost thought it was on fire.
We will not kill you. It is not our way.
The broken weapons clattered to the ground.
But neither shall we allow you to have the foals, if they do not wish it. Leave this place at once. You have nothing more to do here. What
The mare with the rising sun on her flank gulped. The ponies around her seemed a lot less confident now that they realized they didn't have the upper hand.
Ahem,
I said loud. Every pony looked down the hall towards me.
She might not kill you. I won't make the same promise.
The white mare gave me a strange look I couldn't decipher and waved the ponies away. One by one Celestia's vision started to leave the area, but it was not until the last one turned the corner I walked over to Platinum Haze. I'll admit I was really nervous to see her again. A lot had happened and I was worried she wouldn't like me anymore. After the way I rejected her and got all cut up, I did really deserve rejection, but I didn't want it. We could make this work, I was sure of it. If we took it slow, did things right, I really wanted it to work.
Platinum Haze,
She cut me off and I waited for the worst.
Silver! Your face! Are you okay?
Her voice was high and worried. She was just held at gunpoint by 15 ponies, and she asked me if I was okay? That was the same Platinum Haze, all right. Platinum Haze quickly casted an invisibility spell over us. I didn't have time to explain how that hurt, and hurried us towards a wall. Only it wasn't an actual wall, given she was able to walk right through it, and so were we. Haze explained that the school was becoming known and it was a priority to keep its whereabouts hidden at all costs. Once inside, Haze and I deposited Serenity with the other Foals at Serenity's request. Apparently she made a friend before and was excited to talk to them again. I was instantly suspicious. The first thing I noticed once I got a good look at the orphanage was how much better it looked than before. The walls had been repainted, white and pink, and most of the rubble had been moved. The lights seemed to be completely new and a lot more magical than before. Perhaps most importantly, I noticed more than one non-foal walking around the orphanage tending to tasks. Some have heard of us and expressed interest. We took great precaution to interview them, and we personally performed a memory spell on them to hear their true intentions. Haze explained after nodding to one such mare. It was hard to pay attention while I stared at her majestically flowing mane, but I got the gist of it. Diamond Sky was apprehensive about the idea, but we won her over. It has become much easier to handle with extra hooves. After smiling and nodding my understanding, Haze led me down to her room. It too had been refurbished and looked a lot more like an actual room rather than a dirty mattress on the floor. Haze begged me to rest on the new bed, complete with bed frame, and rushed off to speak with Diamond Sky. It didn't give me much time to think though, and she came back just as quick as she left. Upon her return, she laid down beside the bed I was on, we were roughly at eye level, and inquired as to what had happened. So I told her. It was an obscenely long story and I may have skipped over a few parts like the visions, but it got the job done. And your face? She asked timidly, looking at the web of scars that marked half my face. It looks ugly, disgusting. Like it hurts. Are you okay? We worry.
Shotgun.
I rubbed the scars. They still hurt sometimes, or maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me.
Nearly died, but apparently I was useful.
I chuckled bitterly.
High stakes, like I said before. Never should have trusted him.
Flash shouldn't have either, but that ship had sailed. Now I just needed to figure out how to get Flare out of his funk, and then maybe find High Stakes and murder him. Before I could say anything more, I felt Platinum Haze wrap her hoofs around my neck. We were so worried about you. We are aware it is silly as we have not known you long, but we have not been apart from Unity long, and time is relative. That made sense, I think, at least from what I learned about it. She pulled away. We apologize. We are aware of your feeling. You made them clear before. We shouldn't.
You'd still want me even though I look like something a red scorpion dragged home for dinner?
I gave her a slight smirk and tried my best to portray Flare-like levels of humor. It made the conversation less serious and thus easier.
Your good looks were never what we were attracted to, and we do not think the scars detract from your looks in any fashion, she said simply. We found you fascinating. You did not treat us as anything but another pony. Even those we have hired to work here act as if we should be worshipped and feared. Yet you did not. We found this comforting, and when we saw your story, we were able to look past your brutish nature.
Ouch, that hurt.
We cannot fully explain our feelings, but we say this to explain that looks are not, and have never been, our primary concern.
That made sense, I think. It seemed silly in retrospect I ever thought my good looks were why she was attracted to me. Even unscathed I had been passable at best.
But we are aware you did not wish to pursue a relationship. We apologize. Thiese, I tried to wave a hoof to calm her down, but she kept talking. We understand, really. We missed you, though, and were worried. You were gone for so long, and we feared...
Tears seemed to water in her cat-like eyes.
Thiese, really, listen...
She cut me off again, her voice starting to waver even more.
And we understand, really. We are simply silly for getting attached. We are sorry. We will leave you alone and...
Oh, for Celestia's sake! I leaned over and pressed my lips to hers. It was not a long kiss, or even a very good one, but it got my point across well enough. When I pulled back, I saw instead of nearly crying, she was blushing a hot red. It was almost impossibly adorable.
Can I talk now?
She nodded silently.
Thank you, Thiese.
I lifted her chin up with a hoof, because I really was a sap.
I was wrong. Before, I shouldn't have. I was right. I was afraid we were going to go too fast, and that would have been... wrong. Not healthy. I didn't even think of taking things slow, one step at a time. Deal with my issues as they come and tread carefully.
That sounded stupid, and I found myself blushing. I hated blushing, yet every time...
I like you. I'd like to get to know you better. We would like to as well.
She seemed unsure as she looked to the ground, but quickly brought her eyes back in line with mine.
We would like it a lot. I only have one condition.
She looked at me quietly, which I could only guess was giving me the option to answer.
We are never allowed to be this sappy again. Some pony could see. I have a reputation to uphold.
At first, she gave me a bemused look, and I worried that my teasing had gone over her head, but it slowly turned into a small grin, and finally into a high-pitched giggle.
We apologize.
She stood up to bow.
We did not mean to jeopardize your reputation. It's fine.
I nodded impassively.
The walls won't tell, but next time...
I was simply too silly not to smile.
Do you mind if I stay the night?
Watch how I make a fool of myself by not thinking before I speak.
I mean not stay, just sleep. Not with you, that is. It's just a flare and...
I did my best to stem the rising tide of my blush. After a few deep breaths, I looked back at Thiese, who had a bemused smirk.
Flare and I got into a fight. It's a long story, just need to cool off.
And he needed to come off his high.
So I need a place...
It's fine, Silver. We do not mind. Tonight is not a night we sleep.
I'm not entirely sure that made sense.
I thought you didn't require sleep. That's what you said before.
The day of traveling had left me pretty tired, and the fight with Flare did not help matters either, so it was possible I was remembering things wrong.
We did state that, but in error. In Unity, sleep was not required, but in this form it seems as though it is. So we have determined it is not as important and we can go longer without.
She blushed a little.
When we found this information, it was on accident. We vanished while looking for more orphans, and Diamond Sky was wrecked with worry. It turned out I was standing outside the door, only invisible and asleep. With the lucky thing that we snore.
It was a task not to laugh at how silly that story was.
If you were here, we might have been found sooner.
Yeah,
I said, trying my best to get comfortable on the bed.
I'm special like that.
There was a strange silence, and when Hayes did not respond right away, I looked over to her. Her yellow eyes were closed, and she looked like she was contemplating something, or trying to remember. Eventually she opened them and looked gravely.
We are not certain you are.
Was that supposed to be an insult?
One night, we were up top looking for orphans to rescue when we passed this mare. Please understand that when we go up, we use multiple spells that keep us completely silent and invisible. And we did not pass within 20 feet of this mare, but I swear. She turned and looked at me, right in the eyes. She was an earth pony too. There was no way she could have seen us yet. It was only when we flew away that she went on her way. It was unsettling.
Really? Another pony with that same strange power? It seemed a bit circumstantial, but there wasn't really another way she could have seen Hayes if her spell was as good as she said. Maybe there was an actual reason for my powers.
What did she look like?
If I could find her and ask, maybe I'd be able to figure it out. I've been able to sense magic for so long it had just become part of who I was. But with this information, something in the back of my head nagged me to find out its cause.
We are sorry. We cannot recall. It was dark.
She looked abashed.
We just thought the information was relevant.
It was at that. My mind circled backwards, trying to remember when the ability first came to me. As an earth pony, most things magical had been far beyond my grasp or understanding, and unless I was sorely mistaken, I didn't start being able to sense magic until Brittle Hope. A thought struck me, and I slowly lifted up my metal leg. I only had that ability since I got my leg. Maybe the two were connected somehow.
Did she have cybernetics?
The Alicorn looked at me and slowly panned down to my leg. Slowly she shook her head.
None that we could see, but we did not get a good look. We apologize.
If it wasn't the cybernetics, what else could it be? Maybe something from Stable 42. Oh! The star metal bullet. Of course. Me getting shot in the leg was what led to my new leg. And maybe that was it. Every pony I talked to claimed that no pony else had survived direct contact. And according to Skyfall, I was still minutely infected. And possibly dying, but ignored that part. It was possible that some sort of thing in the poison in substance gave me the ability. I wasn't a magical pony, so I couldn't know for sure.
Do you know what star metal is?
Platinum Haze's eyes went wide and she slowly, and perhaps a bit fearfully, nodded.
We are aware. It is most dangerous. What is the nature of the inquiry?
Do you know of any pony that has survived it?
She looked away almost as if she was trying to say something, and then shook her head.
Our knowledge is limited. From everything we have seen, we cannot give you an accurate answer. We apologize.
That was a strange way to word no, but it was good enough for me. Maybe I would hit up that Pegasus bastard who Flair worked for and see if he knew anything more substantial.
Are you okay?
She asked.
Huh? Yeah.
I smiled at her.
Sorry, just thinking. Too much. I'm a dumb pony who forgets I'm dumb.
We do not think you are dumb.
With a sigh, she slowly stood up and looked back towards the door.
We hate to do this, but Diamond Sky will require our assistance shortly.
It's fine, Hayes. It's good to see you again. I'm glad we got this worked out-ish.
She smiled and I saw a hint of a blush on her cheeks.
Can you get tomorrow night off?
Perhaps. For what, may we inquire?
The tall equine seemed a bit nervous at my question, if the way she kicked at the floor was any indication.
Would you like to go on a date with me? The alehouse has restaurants. That's what you do on dates, right?
She nodded slowly.
We would love to, but if we go out in public, we fear we will be subject to an attack.
I have an idea about how to hide your appearance.
For once I had an idea, and I'm pretty sure it was awesome.
How do you feel about dresses? I'll hire the finishers to make one. They can be hush-hush. With that, you'll look just like a unicorn.
A rather large one. We will stand out.
Admittingly, that was true. But who would ask a giant unicorn why she was a giant unicorn?
If anything happens, turn invisible and we'll escape. It's worth a shot, right? Just once, please.
This time I took a page from Serenity's book and gave her a pouty look. It seemed to be enough to make her smile.
Oh, fine. We cannot deny you anything.
She giggled before leaning down to kiss me. It was just long to leave me satisfied and have me begging for more. Not to mention how shocking it was that she took the initiative. When she pulled away, her blush had grown twice as red and was working its way up her ears. My blush was not much better.
Tomorrow, ask. I'll arrange things. I missed you.
You said that.
She had a smile on that seemed to light up the room, and I loathed to see it go away when she left the room. Unlike before, she managed this time not to get her flowing mane stuck in the door when she closed it. Instead, it was her tail. With a cute squeak, a blush, and apology, she managed to leave the room without any more damage. I flopped back in the bed and started giggling. There was no reason to giggle. In fact, I preferred to chuckle, chortle, or nicker if I had the choice. But I couldn't stop myself. Something came over me that was a very successful conversation. I just wanted to lie there and giggle like a fool until the date. Everything just felt so great and I was happy. It wouldn't last, but I wanted to savor it. So I kept giggling. Through the door, I could have sworn I heard Thiese doing the same. Eventually, the giggling had to fade and the worries came. My plan for the date was not really as sound as I'd pretended, but I had to go through with it. It was a perfect way to take it slow, and it'd take my mind off everything trying to kill me. Still, if I could get the dress and the plans, if everything worked just right, then maybe. Maybe it'd be something special. I'm not sure what something special was, but it seemed like the right thing to aim for. Sleep wouldn't come though. My thoughts were too persuasive. So I dug out those documents and hoped they'd put me to sleep. I remembered the last one I read told me to reference a particular document, so I picked out the one it suggested. This one, strangely enough, talked about stealing some sort of technology from Stapletech. Apparently they were working on some high-tech computer and Walkirk wanted it for whatever reason. Unfortunately, a lot of this document seemed to be missing. Entire sections just didn't exist. Infuriatingly, one of those was a section on Baptista. I guess I would never know what had happened to her. Idly, I lifted the fourth report and shifted through it. The final one seemed to be less cloak and daggers. It was entirely about his contract with the Caledonian government to attempt to build the tunnels under Thiese. Apparently they thought he was the best choice as he had previously bought an unfinished stable, it did not say which gave him and his company the means to study it. Which was strange as the tunnels were not anything like the stables I'd seen. Which made sense when I got to the last page where it stated, "Upon further inspection, it is clear that the tunnels may not be able to keep out the expected levels of radiation from a megaspell. If the reports are correct, it would be prudent to resync the entire structure they are built with. As it stands, right now, only the deepest level would be livable, and even that seems to be up in the air. Because of this, I have sent a formal request to redesign the tunnels. I am aware that construction has already begun, but at a modest fee, They could be reconstructed to withstand the projected radiation level. I have attached an official request along with how much the project will cost. Please consider it. It could save lives. Folded inside the document was a 5-page letter that was undoubtedly the project proposal. On the back page was a red stamp stating, "Request denied," with Walkirk's signature beside it. I dropped the document and just stared at it. That killed my good mood at frightening speed. I dreamed of the tunnels during their final hours. I saw ponies running down for safety. They were huddled together as explosions rang out, and lights flickered. Then one by one they started to choke on an unseen poison, and one by one they died, thinking they were saved. Opening my eyes nearly made me jump out of my coat though, as standing above me was an alicorn. For a second I had thought it was Platinum Haze. This alicorn and Haze shared the same slit cat-like yellow eyes. But this pony was purple, not dark blue.
Who?
Then I saw the alicorn's mane. It was like a black field with 1,000 stars sparkling in its wavering folds.
Diamond Sky? You are correct. Are you awake? I will wait until you are.
That would have been a better ultimatum if she was not standing directly above me.
I will wait, but if you could hasten your pace, I would appreciate it. I have much to accomplish today.
I said as I slowly pulled the blankets off me and rolled off the bed, forcing Diamond to take a few steps back.
You said I, not we. You have amazing powers of perception,
the unicorn remarked dryly. When I tried to explain what I meant, she quickly cut me off.
Yes, Sister Haze does speak in plurals as we did in Unity. As much as I love my sister, you must understand she is troubled.
Huh, is that why she was here?
When Unity broke, it did not break evenly. Thousands of souls and minds clamored together around and through Mother, and when Mother died, the minds and souls stayed in the bodies they were in, unable to move. Some of my sisters have many inside them, not many holes, but many pieces of which they must focus to make them whole, to make them a singular again. Sister Haze is different. When Unity broke, it was hard on her, and I took it upon myself to help her grow despite the challenges. That brings me to why I am here today.
The door slammed shut behind her and locked. My eyes darted over to Subtlety, which was lying beside the bed.
What about?
At those words, she moved closer and leaned far too close to me and flared out her wings.
I want to make something clear.
The light in the room started to dim except for her eyes, which started to glow. When she spoke, her voice seemed lower and focused at me.
If you hurt her, if you abuse her, if you take advantage of her, I will kill you. Then I will hide your body where none shall find it. Sister Haze may refuse to kill, but I do not hold that oath. I make exceptions. If you dare to do anything to hurt her mind, body, or soul, you will be an exception. Am I making myself perfectly clear?
This was not the introduction I'd been hoping for. I had heard a little of Haze's friend, and Haze had always seemed to be fond of her. I could see why. It was good Haze had a friend to defend her, and I had no intention of ever hurting Haze, so her threat didn't mean much.
Perfectly.
Despite knowing I was safe, my throat was still dry, making my gulp.
Really, I like Haze. I would never...
The alicorn stared at me for a good long while, and I held her gaze.
Okay.
She stood back up to her full impressive height, which was taller than even Platinum Haze unless I was mistaken.
I have warned you. I can only pray you are not a liar. You have known Haze at least somewhat to make her care for you. You must understand she is very... She does not like taking charge.
The right pony could abuse her. And if that were to happen... Her eyes hardened. I promised to protect her. And protect I will.
Are you like her mother?
As soon as I said that, I knew I had misspoke. The alicorn's eyes flashed against, and I shuddered.
We are her sister. Our mother is dead, and we...
Sorry!
I cut her off.
I didn't mean you are like her older sister?
Her anger seemed to have faded at those words, and she nodded.
I find this simile appropriate. If it helps you to think about the situation, that is. So long as you understand.
I nodded my understanding.
Good. What, exactly, is your intention with Sister Hayes?
I scratched my two back legs together. They itched something fierce, and I hadn't had my morning medicine. I was in no way in a good place for this discussion, but I doubted stopping it to get high would really endear Sky to me.
I have no intention. I like her, she likes me. We go on a few dates, see where it goes. I'd like a mare friend, I guess. And I like to see Hayes happy.
Okay, I will allow this. Remember my warning,
she said very sternly, and I heard unlocking behind me.
What would have happened if you didn't allow it?
I was good at stupid question.
I would have stopped your heart and teleport you into the darkest corner of the tunnels.
Even though she wasn't hurting me then, it still felt like my heart was seizing up at the words. Thanks Celestia didn't say anything stupid.
Have a good day.
With a brilliant purple flash that reminded me of the Batmare, the alicorn vanished from the room. As soon as she left, I hurriedly threw subtlety onto my back to feel safe again, and quickly took out a Med-X. With the delicious drug flowing through my veins, I felt my rapidly beating heart start to slow and normalize. It did remind me I had to speak with Flair that day, but with Med-X in my system I was sure I could handle it. With Med-X, I could handle anything. As soon as I left the room, I was hit with a high-pitched squeal and impact to my side.
Mama!
She was hanging off subtlety and kicking hind legs uselessly to try and propel her on properly.
Hayes said to wake you up as loud as he could, but you're already awake. Hayes gave me candy too. I like candy. You should give me more. It's really good. It's called chocolate. I like it. It tastes the best thing ever. And I was gonna use it to wake you up, but I eat it instead. Sorry, Scooterborg ate some too. She liked it more than me, but she wasn't allowed to have much.
There was a reason I never gave Serenity much candy.
Oh, really?
I remarked in a flat tone as I helped her onto my back.
Why? 'Cause too much is bad for little ponies. Luckily, I'm a big pony and allowed to have as much as I want. That's what Hayes said.
She stood on my back, and I decided it'd be a good idea to kick my back.
You need something for me to sit on? Oh, how about a saddle? That'd be awesome.
Awesome was not the word I would have used.
Guess what, Mama? You're actually an alien sent from outer space?
It was as good a guess as any.
No, Mama, you're silly.
I couldn't argue that logic.
So guessing is that I made a friend. He's real nice. You'd like him.
A friend. A cold friend. Suddenly Diamond Sky's rant to me felt a lot more justified.
And Hayes told me you're going on a date. Is this true? That's so cute. Can I come? Serenity? No. Drat, I was gonna embarrass you with embarrassing stories.
As if she knew any.
Oh, wears a tablecloth as a cape and run around. That's cute, right? Either way, it'd be fun.
I was starting to think this was just a ploy to convince me to make Serenity stay at the orphanage for the trip. If that was the case, it was working wonderfully.
Let's go.
She had clearly won that round, so I dropped the topic and started walking towards where I'd assumed Hayes was. Well, not assume. I felt magic and went towards it. When has that ever went wrong? In this case it didn't go wrong, for as soon as I reached the end of the hall, Platinum Haze trotted out of it. For some reason she had a small yellow colt hanging off her mane.
Hey, who are you? You're ugly, and you smell. What's your name? Can we be friends? Are you going to kiss Auntie Hayes? You look like you are. Who's your friend? Why are you looking at me like that? Do you have any candy?
With the straightest face I could muster, I replied.
hired gun. Sorry, sorry, hired gun. No, yes, because I am. Serenity, because no.
The colt just stared at me with his jaw hanging open as I leaned to kiss Hayes' nose.
Morning.
Good morning, Silver,
Hayes said as another toddler suddenly appeared peeking around Hayes' horn.
Since we have tonight off, Diamond told us to watch the preschool foals. We are unsure why Diamond always makes us watch them. We think they are simply wonderful.
Auntie Hayes thinks we're wonderful,
the tiny filly that was clinging to Platinum's horn said.
I think I'm wonderful. Logan is wonderful. He's mean on the belly.
As if challenged by those words, a third foal, a colt, jumped onto Hayes' head and started to wrestle with the filly. A few seconds later and they were tumbling down Hayes' neck.
So Diamond makes you take care of the young foals. Can't imagine why.
There were shouts and screams from Hayes' back. With a sigh that was nearly exasperated, Hayes' horn lit up, and she flared her wings out. Without looking back, she pulled the two wrestling foals away from each other and placed them one on each wing.
You two behave,
she said sharply.
Or no dessert.
The two pouting foals mumbled something that sounded like,
Yes, Auntie Hayes.
And there was order once more.
They can be a hoofful, but we simply adore children.
Auntie Hayes doesn't have her cutie mark yet,
the colt hanging from her mane said.
Most big ponies do, but she doesn't. I don't either. We're gonna help her get her cutie mark. And then she'll help us. It'll be like a team thing, a group. We'll have to think of a name.
Sorry, Silver, but we must be going. The children need their breakfast, or they will be upset. We will see you tonight.
Yes, meet you in my apartment after you're off. I'll bring a finisher over,
I said as I moved to the side to let her through.
Don't worry about Caps.
It was a tight squeeze as she passed because her wings were splayed out, and it didn't help when she stopped mid-stride to say to me,
Oh, and your Pegasus friend is waiting outside. Diamond Sky said he was not allowed in.
Lovely. I was hoping to postpone our heart-to-heart as long as possible.
We will see you later.
Oh, we get to see Uncle Flair sooner. Good, yeah, need to hug and make up,
Serenity said from beside me, prompting me to give her a questioning look.
What? They call Hayes Auntie Hayes, and I've known Flair longer than they've known Hayes. It only makes sense.
That made too much sense in my brain for me to try to argue.
Uncle Flair it is.
If he didn't apologize and shape up, he'd be Dead Uncle Flair. Which was, from my understanding, a much worse title.
Let's find him.
After getting lost a few times in the orphanage hallways and interrupting another math class, I eventually found the door by following my magic sense. I'd forgotten about the illusions that made it look like a wall. Upon exiting, I was greeted to the sorry excuse for a Pegasus sleeping on the dirty grates that made up the floor. So I kicked him. It was a light kick, but it was also with my metal hoof, so he grunted and opened his eyes. The fuck? Oh! His eyes were pink, as they always were, but no longer bloodshot. Hired. He slowly got to his feet, blushing a little bit. Let's walk and talk. Being underground rustles my feathers.
Yeah.
I grunted and started down the hallway. As I did, Serenity jumped onto my back, because who likes walking? Listen, Hired. Shit, I'm sorry. He kept his eyes downcast. It just got too much to handle, and I broke. Taunting you was probably not the best move. Or buying stuff on your credit. He smirked. But what stuff I bought? You should have seen this one stallion. He had a...
Fuck off, Flair.
I cut him off.
I'm tired of your mouth.
This seemed to spark something in the Pegasus said, as he instantly replied. Maybe if you weren't such a bitch this would be easier. Yeah, I fucked up, but check yourself before you start throwing me around.
What? You go and bitch and moan about your fuck buddy was an ass, and I'm the bitch?
My own words made me stop in my tracks. After going over what I had just said, I realized something.
Am I a bitch? Serenity?
The filly on my back gulped, which answered my question.
Maybe?
she said tentatively.
It's not the word I'd use, but it ain't exactly non-correct either.
I didn't mean to be a bitch. It just came naturally to me. It wasn't like I had a lot of friends. For the longest time, Wildfire was my only friend. Sure, I had acquaintances, but they didn't really count. So I guess I wasn't really in the right mindset to deal with Flare. When we were good, it was fine. He'd make jokes, I'd threaten him, but I wasn't sure what to say when he was upset about something, and clearly I was handling it wrong. Apparently ponies don't like it when I diminish their problems.
I
said eventually.
Listen.
Flare had been silent since my last, so to make sure he was listening, I stopped and put a hoof on his back.
I'm sorry. I'm a bitch. Totally.
Yeah, you are. He responded perhaps a bit too quickly. I've always done this. I get attached too quickly, just like last time. He started walking again after I took my hoof off, so I followed.
Last time?
I guess it was story time. Yeah. He looked around the tunnel and shuddered. I mentioned it before, back in the tunnels. Well, I called him a mare then, but there's no point to continue that lie. Oh yeah, I'd completely forgot about that. It was a long time ago, but I found a cute little mercenary buck. He wasn't what you'd call a talker, but it was cute to get him to blush. Flare gave a small smile at the thought. He took a job to clear out some rat scorpions in the tunnels maybe a month after we met. He never came back. His voice turned grim real quickly. Broke my heart and I got all emotional. But then the jig was up.
Jig?
Now I was confused.
Why, were you dancing? Mama, I think he means some sort of secret or something.
Flare seemed to hesitate. You know, the whole lacking stallions thing? The remnants don't take too kindly to that sort of thing. For the life of me, I couldn't imagine why they'd even care. A reproduction, Flare explained. There are not many surface Pegasi, or there were not. Having foals is pretty much required. Oh, that made sense, but it didn't piss me off any less. After that, there was a huge deal about finding me a mare friend, and that was ever so much fun. So there, another sob story courtesy of yours truly. I was starting to wonder if any of us didn't have some sort of attachment issues.
I see.
I looked down the hall. The exit was coming close.
Listen, so long as you try to quit and don't waste my money, I'll try to help you, I guess. Somehow. How?
Beats me. I'll get over it in time. Flare flapped his wings a few times so he could hover in front of me while flying backwards. Which reminds me, I spoke with the Watchers. Booked a detox. You might want to come, for, support. He winked at me. At least he was somewhat discreet. I guess it was the most I could hope for.
When?
Tomorrow.
I'll be there.
We stopped at the stairs that led to the secret exit out of the tunnels. All the real entrances inside Thiese were owned by gangs and heavily guarded to stop immigrants, but no pony knew of this one. Yet, anyway. It was good to have some way in and out of the tunnels without a gang knowing my movements. I was sure House had a tunnel entrance, but I was loath to let him know every time I went under. Hey, hired. Flare landed in front of me. We cool? I chewed my lower lip and looked him over. He seemed weaker lately, more tired. The trip through the facility took its toll on him just as it had on me. And leaving a loved one was never easy at the best of times. I really had been too hard on him, hadn't I? Sure, Stakes was an ass, but Flare had liked him, and my feelings on the matter didn't really change how Flare felt. Mind you, he shouldn't have broken and started back on Dash, but if I cut some pony off for having a mental breakdown, I'd not only be an idiot, but a huge hypocrite.
Yeah, sorry about being a bitch.
Flare laughed. I expected it from you. And flew up the stairwell. I'm a bitch. He's an ass, and that's the way it should be. We made our way from the Thiese slums, up north past the main gate into Parasite Mount. We made a brief stop at the Finisher's HQ. No pony I knew was working the front desk, but I still requested a dressmaker at my apartment for a later rush job, and to bring a lot of fabric and the largest dress they owned. It was not cheap, but with my paycheck, the money Flair owed me, and the things we scavenged from the facility, I would easily have enough. With that out of the way, I made my way to the Vinnie Mae and Franny Mac Death Clock Hotel and Casino, which was where I directed Pearly to stay, to tell her the good news. Doing all these errands actually made me feel accomplished. It was a nice change of pace from fighting for my life, or traveling. The hotel was as dim and dark as ever, and we were greeted by a hooker upon entering. In the lobby, a stage was set up where a ghoul Pegasus was badly singing a song about how much balefire hurt. At that side, I quickly made my way to the back room where the signs stated the casino was both hoping that Pearly was there and that it was soundproof. Ghouls just couldn't sing. When the ghoul saw me scurrying away, I could have sworn he stopped his song to call me a racist. The casino was cramped, grimly and sparsely populated. Only 3 one-hoofed bandits were in use, 1 roulette wheel, 1 poker table, and 2 blackjack. It was easy enough to confirm my guess as Pearly was sitting by one of the blackjack tables, smiling smugly behind her 2 cards. To my surprise, I actually recognized 2 of the other ponies at her table. One was a tall dark grey mare with a spiky crimson mane, and a bloody dagger tattoo on her flank, and beside her was a small lighter grey filly with a tight back purple mane.
Well, look what the cat dragged in! A cunt!
The ex-raider laughed.
Get the fuck over here, hired! Pearly's been waiting and I've been helping. With you here I can go fuck off so my filly will stop eating all my caps. Nuh-uh, mommy! You're just bad at counting. I'm a super awesome counter and guesser. You'd do better if I could teach ya, but you never let me.
The filly replied haughtily as a dealer shoved some chips towards the filly.
Pinprick?
The ex-raider smirked as I walked up.
Spitshine?
I nodded greetings to the both of them.
Hey, Pearly!
The focused mare just adjusted her head and stared harder at her cards. I gave a soft laugh and looked at the dealer.
Deal me in?
The dealer took my caps and gave me some chips in return. A chance to steal Hired's money without her kicking me? I'm in! Flair sat down too and got his chips.
Mama, can I? No serenity. But that filly gets no serenity. I get to because I'm super awesome.
Spitshine explained.
Look, that's my cutie mark. Isn't it awesome?
True enough, on her flank was a picture of a roulette wheel. Not quite blackjack, but the theme of being good at guessing odds came through.
What's your cutie mark?
My filly's eyes went downcast and she took a seat beside me.
Doesn't matter,
she mumbled.
Didn't want to play anyway.
I mentally made a note to ask Serenity what was up with her reaction and why she didn't tell Spitshine she was a blank flank. It would have to wait until private though. Finally, Pearly looked up from her cards.
Hired? Oh hey! A bit awakens! Whoop-de-fucking-do!
Pinprick remarked as the dealer took the cards and started shuffling.
Hey, Pearly!
I smirked.
You're focused at this game.
At that note, the dealer looked hard at us, reminding us to actually, play. I put in a minimum bet. 10 caps worth.
Yeah, trying to figure out how that run keeps winning.
Pearly gave Spitshine a hard and playful gaze as the dealer floated over 2 cards each. Since most ponies playing the game weren't unicorns, the dealer handled all the cards on the table. With a sigh, I looked at my cards. A 2 and a jack.
She's got natural talent,
I suggested. Maybe it was right, because the filly was staring hard at her cards.
Hit me!
I waved at the dealer and sure enough I got hit with a 10 of spades.
Lovely!
The dealer stopped at 19 and everyone else at the table either busted or was lower. Except for Spitshine, whose first 2 cards were a 10 and ace.
Natural talent.
Spitshine giggled as I gaped.
I has it. See what I mean, hon?
Pearlie smirked.
Not even fair.
She tapped her hoofs on the table as the dealer took the cards in and started to shuffle again.
So, did you find a way to get me into the city?
I did. A job at the Black Salamander. Waitress. Nothing fancy, but it's a paycheck.
I placed the same bet as last time.
Is that okay? I could look for more, but...
It's fine, hon.
Pearlie waved a hoof at me.
I owe you. After Brittle Hope was taken, I was lost. I couldn't stay there, but I had nowhere else to go. So thanks for unlosing me. Ain't just any pony what do that for a mare.
I couldn't help but blush. Thankfully the cards were dealt and it gave me something else to focus on. A 7 and a 3. This time I looked around to see what every pony else got. After I was assured no pony else was going to show off with a lucky draw, I motioned for him to hit me. This time I got an 8, leaving me at a comfortable 18.
I'll work out the details,
I said to Pearlie.
Give me a few days.
Do it by tomorrow,
Pinprick said, oddly without cursing. This made me turn over to hear what she had to say.
Trust me, bitch, you don't want to twat around any longer than that. Shit's going down, and it's going down soon. Use your fucking hooves and move.
Tomorrow, then,
I said, uncertain. The tone of Pinprick's voice took my attention more than the fact I won the hand, along with Flair and Spitshine.
What's going down?
Pinprick took a swig of her drink, which I didn't notice she had, and said,
Samson, you know that feeling right before the thunder hits? When the Brahmins stop moving and the model rats vanish? That's the feeling. Something's about to explode right in this city's fucking face.
The city's always been like that,
was my reply as the cards were dealt again.
Hit me,
I said absent-mindedly. It wasn't until after I said it I realized I hit on 21.
It does? Fuck if I know.
She finished her drinks and nickered at my call, as if I didn't feel stupid enough.
Still, the bat bitch seemed to be worried, so I say you picked up a good fucking time to come back down. Keep your eyes out, and if shit goes wrong, I told you fucking so, cunt.
Spitshine and Pinprick took the hand impressively. It might have something to do with most players being distracted by mine and Prick's conversation.
You know the Batmare?
You're looking to an official superhero in training. My mama would be so proud.
Spitshine giggled a little, giving me the feeling I was missing the joke.
But yeah, that bitch and I've been tearing this town a new one. She's not simple. Act this, but ain't. For instance, did you know she knew you entered the city an hour before you arrived and brought me here to Pearlie cause I told her I like that cunt? You're not that bad yourself, hon.
Pearlie smirked across the table.
A tad vulgar, though. Well, there's no pissing around about that.
The dealer started dealing us again.
Anyway, we've been helping each other. We're both heroes, so to speak. I help her by getting some good publicity. That radio dick has a hard-on for me, and a hate-on for that bat bitch. In return for working with her to improve her cred, she gives me the tips on the biggest busts, you dig? It all works. We both get to play the fucking hero.
I grumbled at my cards. 2 2s.
Hit me.
A 6.
Hit me.
I didn't bother to look at the second card.
Play hero?
Hired, hired! Flair shook his head. She means she acts like a hero, you know, like a play or a children's game.
Fuck off, Flair, I knew that.
I know what the bitch means. She's asking if I feel like a fucking hero.
She waved the waitress over for another drink.
Which is a stupid-ass question for a whole nother reason.
She chucked her new glass.
I'm no fucking hero. I've killed more fuckers than I saved. And that's a fucking fact. I counted. Shit, like saving ponies and shit is good, but it ain't like watching out my blood or whatever poetry you want to use. Fact is, I'm a killer, and no, I just kill to save ponies. If cunts over the radio wants to call me a hero and use that to inspire them or some shit, then sure, I'll play along. I ain't like that cunt what opened up the sky, but fuck it. If it helps ponies, I'll play their game.
She looked over at my cards.
You got blackjack, by the way.
Huh, oh shit.
I grabbed my chips and placed a much larger bet for the next hand.
So, Prick, can I ask you something? What is the nature of a hero?
Is that some sort of fucking riddle? She placed her bet. The way I see it is like a hero is a title. And heroes are whoever the most ponies agree are heroes, like the Fuckbringer or Lightbringer or whatever. How do you think the Pegasi fared when half their cities vanished like dust when she pulled the crowds out from under them? When the Enclave up top started fighting for resources like the radio talks about? That shit kills ponies who get caught in the crossfire. It's the Lightfucker's fault, but who down here blames her? No pony. She's killed ponies and done things what killed ponies, but she's still a hero because they proclaim her one. That's fucking simple. Pinprick sighed when she busted on her last few chips. Great.
Sorry, Mama, but I won a lot.
Spitshine held up her chips.
Look, I'm kinda awesome cause my kitty mark.
Yeah. Pinprick smiled warmly and ruffled her daughter's mane. We need to head out. Some asshole is planning to raid one of the villages underground, and the bad bitch needs my knife. She looked over at me one last time. Keep your fucking eye open. If I were you, I wouldn't hide your magic eye. See you cunts later. We all said our quick goodbyes as Pinprick cashed in her daughter's chips and left. She heard I was in town, searched me down and gave me a bag of caps, Pearlie said, a bit bewildered. Because she knew how much I lost. She is the rudest, most unagreeable pony I've ever met. And then she does stuff like that. Pearlie tossed some caps into a bet. She's a strange one. She could say that again. She's crazier than a bag of fire, Flair ever so helpfully said.
That doesn't make sense, Uncle Flair.
Serenity said now that she was no longer pouty about Spitshine having her cutie mark first.
A bag of fire would burn.
And that'd be crazy. Flair smirked. So, Pearlie, you up for a few more games?
Hopefully my luck will improve,
Pearlie said as she fidgeted with her hat.
Should be better without that fella. I swear she won every round.
That explained how Pinprick could afford to randomly give Pearlie money.
Mama's good luck, don't worry,
Serenity said without a hint of humor. She clearly believed that, but why I couldn't imagine. I have been many things, but good luck was not one of them.
Can I play now? Sure, Serenity.
In the end, I was down about 15 caps. Pearlie was up 20, Flair broke even, and somehow Serenity was up over 100. Maybe that dealer just liked cute kids, or Serenity stole chips. Either was just as likely as the other. After a few hours we had to leave though, so after promising Pearlie I'd get her in tomorrow, and waving goodbye, we left back for Thiese proper. Judging by the time on my pip-bug, Thiese was either at my apartment or heading towards it, so I hurried up. I was really looking forward to this date. When the three of us barged into the BS, I found it busy. Unnaturally busy. The Black Salamander had always been the least populated of the 4 major casinos, but today it was full to packing. Many ponies crowded around the roulette wheels or poker tables, but even more were lined up towards the sign labeled Hospital.
Sorry ma'am, we're full up.
A tiny blue mare stuck her hoof out in front of me as I walked through the door. When I looked over I saw only her black and white mane as she wasn't looking at me.
Come back tomorrow. Tight lips,
I said, remembering the security mare from before.
I'm Thiese, let me through. Hired?
She quite suddenly hugged me.
Well, don't that beat all? How you've been?
She treated me like we were old friends, but we only met twice.
Look at all this business, don't turn on no pony. But it seems like the NCA is gearing up and have started paying for cybernetics for their ponies. Talk about your A-grade advertising, am I right? You can thank me,
Serenity said proudly.
I convinced the general about how cool it was. Oh, you did know, sweetie. Well, we should upgrade you too. Free cost.
Serenity got a really excited look on her face before the mare laughed.
Just kidding. I can't authorize that. I only run security. Speaking of security, you really shouldn't let alicorns into your room without warning me, otherwise I might shoot them.
My heart skipped a beat.
Watch.
She tapped the side of her head and a pair of sunglasses slid out of her face.
Let me see magical signatures, good for seeing stealth bugs and invisibility spells. Oh, and I can see through walls. That's cool too.
The sunglasses retracted.
We can't be called super soldiers like Mr. Star, but I have my tricks. I'm sure you have yours too. You didn't shoot her, did you?
For some reason asking made my throat die. This would have been a terrible start to a date.
What? No, maybe a few weeks ago, but after the sky went poof, House sent a memo out. Apparently alicorns were coming south. Not many, but enough to be noticed. Some confused, some sane and running, but still coming. We were told to approach Annie and ask if they'd like a job.
The tiny mare laughed.
Wouldn't that be something?
I've always said House needs an army of cybernetic alicorns, haven't I been saying that, Hired?
Flair seemed amused by this information. Maybe he was going to sell it to his boss.
He said no, didn't she?
I said.
Well,
the mare hummed.
She didn't say anything. I think I frightened her, but she did shake her head. A shame, she was a cutie. Later I had to send a finisher up there too. Makes me wonder what exactly you're getting yourself into.
Black and white maned mare paused and giggled.
Take pictures!
You know what I really needed more of? Snarky ponies who delighted in seeing my squirm. With a slight blush, I headed towards the employee-only elevators, which is to say the only elevators I knew about. I was sure there were regular ones, but I never really explored the building. It was too large and I was too busy. For a given definition of busy. As we waited for the elevator to go up, I asked Flair to take Serenity to the orphanage while I was on the date, and after not to bug us. Which I'm sure he was planning on doing anyway. It was just his style after all. Hopefully after our little fight he'd be more willing not to fuck up my relationships. Wishful thinking. To Flair's credit, he did agree, but agreeing and going through with it were two different things. Normally I would have already sent them off, but Serenity was upset last time I wore a dress without her being around. The elevator dinged our arrival and the three of us left into the hallway. Our doorway was only a short walk away, and we got there without incident. Which is not that surprising. What was I expecting? The hallway to explode? Without so much as hesitating, I opened the door to my spacious apartments. To find Platinum Haze slinking out from behind a curtain set up in the middle of the room. She was garbed in a simple, flowing, purple cotton embroidered dress in rolling black stitching for decoration. A dusty purple bodice wrapped around the alicorn's chest, laced up the sides in shiny, black ribbon. A rich, red wrap with beaded trim was tied around her neck and draped across her back, hiding the bulges caused by her wings. Simple black slippers caped each brightly polished, scarlet hoof. Her mane was tied into a braid in such a way it completely hid the fact it was magical and flowy.
You look,
I said after picking my jaw off the floor.
Amazing.
I started to walk into the room only for a strange pony to cut me off. She was a pale purple unicorn mare with a long curly aqua mane, that was darker at the tips, and a fairly standard finisher dress. But it was hard to tell beneath those hot pink sunglasses of hers.
Excuse me. Amazing. Amazing.
The finisher just shook her head, trumping over to the dress.
Look here. It was too short. And what do? Add more fabric. Given no time to prepare, you can see the stitching. It's a travesty is what it is.
I had no idea what she was talking about, and I could see nothing.
And this wrap, it does not match the shoes. One in crimson, the other scarlet. The body itself is centuries old and too tight. Look at it. Darling, do not call this work amazing. I am ashamed to have my name on it. What?
Did I really have to hire the most insane of all of the finishers?
Hired.
Haze was blushing a red so bright she matched her slippers.
Thank you. We feel
Pretty.
The finisher cut me off with a dramatic sigh.
Whatever you say, darling. Prettier, that's it.
The pretty alicorn looked over at the finisher and smiled shyly.
Thank you so much as well. We appreciate what you have done for us, and your discretion. Alicorns are above my pay grade,
the mayor said simply.
I make the dresses, nothing more. If I told any pony, I would get dragged into the ugly mess, and that, my dear Hayes, is strictly against my non-confrontation policy.
The mayor waved at me.
Well, come in. I have much work to do. Thanks.
Hayes stepped meekly to the side as I, followed by Flair, smirking at me, and Serenity, staring wide-eyed at Hayes, went into my room.
Who are you?
Cross-stitch, darling. Now right this way. You have this date tonight, right? Too soon, too soon. How am I supposed to work in these conditions?
Cross-stitch gave a dramatic sigh, fixed her glasses and steeled her expression.
Best get to work then.
Despite her constant complaints about how she didn't have enough time, how she was overworked, how I was much too large, she did a fantastic job. I had planned just to wear my last finisher dress, but as it turns out, wearing a dress over open burn wounds kind of ruined it. She took one look, sped off to one side, and threw it out and instead made me a sea green evening gown. The smooth fabric shimmered over my large body and I wasn't a fashion expert, but it seemed to accentuate my hips, and I wasn't really sure how I felt drawing attention there. Because Cross could not keep well enough alone, she also took the time to do my mane up in a soft bun on the back of my head, held in place by a silver comb with two deep green flowing ribbons. Carefully I took a few steps and let the dress flow and shimmer around me. The silver shoes might have been a bit tight, or maybe it was the crisscrossing straps that laced up my legs. Only my hind legs. The shoes didn't fit on my cyber leg, and the lace didn't look around my pip buck. That were tight. I thought about loosening the green buttons that held them on, but Cross looked. Crossed at me when I tried.
You look so pretty, Mama.
Serenity bounced around me.
Oh, that dress is super pretty too. Oh, I just had the best idea. Make the dress a weapon.
I careened my head around to see her playing with some sort of fabric on the hem of the dress.
Add some wires, a few blades. When some pony comes close, you press a button and the dress poofs out and sends blades flying in every direction. It'd be awesome.
She certainly has an imagination, darling.
The finisher looked down at my filly from behind her glasses. That was one way to put it. Serenity is currently working on a way to make everything robots. Flair had stayed to watch me transform from ugly to slightly less ugly. Ponies, dresses, food, toys. With Serenity, the sky's the limit. Meaning I'm sure she wants to make a cybernetic sky.
That doesn't even make sense,
Serenity said after sticking her tongue out.
We think you look amazing,
Hayes said breathily, and that was all I needed to hear.
We are glad you agreed to give us a second chance. We are just worried about being seen by so many ponies.
She gulped.
You look marvelous, darling, truly. Don't worry your pretty little head off,
the finisher said, with a smile despite the fact she was disparaging the dress not that long ago.
And no pony will notice your wings. Just do not touch that wrap, and it will be fine. But I must go. I will send a bill.
She started for the door after packing up her supplies.
Wait,
I said as Cross was near the door. She obediently did so and turned back to me.
You really don't care about Hayes?
Above my pay grade, darling. Have fun.
She walked out, leaving me with mixed feelings about the dressmaking mare. She clearly did a very good job with limited supplies and time, but on the other hoof, she kind of annoyed me. Yeah, I guess I should head off too now, before you put my head on a spike. Flair chuckled. Come on, Serenity, give the lovebird some privacy. he said, nudging at Serenity some. Despite my professed forgiveness, I was still a little bit sore over what transpired between Flair and me, but I tried my best to work through it and gave him a little bit of a grin. Serenity didn't follow right away, because first she had to run over and hug my legs.
Have fun, Mama!
Then she put on her most serious expression and said very sternly,
And no hanky-panky!
It was hard work to both not laugh and not blush at that proclamation, but somehow I managed.
Good!
She trotted off beside Flair before turning back one last time.
I'm serious!
When the door closed, that left me and Hayes alone, together, all prettied up. The awkward silence was deafening.
So...
I said slowly.
Yes. So...
came the reply. The silence continued.
The
silence would have continued, but for some reason I couldn't help but laugh. Maybe because the situation was silly, or maybe it was just my way of releasing tension. Whatever the case, I giggled like a little filly, and soon Hayes joined me. By the time we were done, the awkwardness had burned away.
Are you sure you want to do this?
I managed to get out after the giggle fit.
Go out, I mean.
We are nervous, but we believe it is a good move. We wish to be with you, and it will be fun. In addition, it is a good way to test the waters, to see how ponies react to us, so we can better judge when we can come out of hiding.
She carefully adjusted her bodies with her magic,
if we ever can.
I made a sweeping movement with my hoof towards the door.
Shall we go? After you.
Hayes nodded and started walking towards the door, and I quickly followed. However, as I came near to the exit to my apartment, I noticed that my BEL, that I left there, had vanished. With a sigh, I resigned myself to the fact that Flair probably touched and moved it. Normally I would go look to make sure, but I was going on a date with an alicorn and thus quite distracted. The hallway was empty when we left my apartment, so I took the opportunity to sidle up close to Hayes, and act which enticed an approving smirk from the shy alicorn.
We are not sure you should be so close. You might wrinkle the dresses.
There was a teasing quality to her voice, so I didn't take her seriously.
They'll get better.
It was an effort, but I managed to reach up and nuzzle Hayes by carefully balancing momentarily on my hind legs.
I'm glad. You don't hate me.
Though by all rights, she probably should have.
We do not hate anyone,
she said as we entered the elevator and headed downstairs. Part of me wanted to question what she meant by that. It was nice not to be hated, but it could still mean she disapproved with who I was, but refused to fall into hate. Or maybe she actually liked me and was being genuine. It was such an ambiguous statement that I wasn't quite sure what she meant. Nervously, I clicked at the ground with my uncomfortable shoes. Maybe I would bring it up at dinner, but at that time I didn't. As we got closer to the ground floor, I could see her nervousness grow. She seemed to be looking around the elevator, which was a bit too small for her, and twice I saw her prepare for a spell she never cast.
It'll be fine,
I said, trying to be comforting. When she smiled at me, I could tell it was fraught with anxiety, but it was something. The elevator stopped on the 5th floor and I felt my heart jump into my chest. Slowly, the mechanical doors opened, showing a sterile white hall and a green pony with a white doctor's coat standing there. He gaped up at Hayes for a second before looking at me. Something must have clicked in his head because he just nodded at me and entered without issue. As soon as he turned around to face the door, I looked up at Hayes and gulped. There was neither a response from Hayes or the anonymous doctor pony, and when the door finally opened, every pony left and nothing was said of the incident. Hayes and I hung back as the doctor walked towards the exit.
You okay?
Yes,
she said slowly.
That went better than expected.
That was good enough for me, so I let her take a few breaths to calm herself and headed towards the casino floor. I really hoped that it wasn't as crowded as before. Like most of the time, my hopes were dashed to pieces. The casino was as crowded as earlier, and the huge line to the cybernetic office was even larger. It seemed to snake out the front door and presumably down the street. When I looked up to see if Thiese was okay with this, many ponies seeing her eyes were wide and scanning the room. I tried to be comforting and slid up beside her.
"You'll be fine."
We stood there, looking out into the casino floor for a long while before we made the first step. No pony looked at us, and if they did, it was just a passing glance. As we walked to the exit, few, if any, ponies noticed the giant unicorn in a fancy dress. We lived in a city run by themed gangs, under the threat of war with bipedal cows, and plagued by mutant scorpions and land sharks. Platinum Thiese was weird, but not enough for the city to actually care. Just a large unicorn. If she had wings though, that'd be different. Until then, we walked into the dark night free of judgment. She had to hide who she was, but it made me happy she was able to walk and be seen at all.
"So you won't fight ever?"
I asked between a mouthful of some sort of soup thing. We had managed to make it to the alehouse without so much as a sideways glance. The casino was a different story, where the guard at the front desk both recognized me, casually mentioning that Molly had been walking the casino floor today and winking at me, and nearly didn't let Thiese in for fear of the other patrons. I got around this by glowering and being fucking terrifying. Even in all my finery, it was clear I was not to be messed with. Once inside, everything went smoothly. We made our way through the long hall, with strangely high ceilings, that led to the arena, casino, and various restaurants. The fanciest of the restaurants was called the White Tie. At first, the waiter at the front did not want to let me in because we didn't have reservation, but I was good at glaring. The restaurant itself was in a fancy room with high arcing ceilings and a series of large tables with some sort of cloth on them. It was spacious though, and surprisingly empty. We were led to a table off to the side beside a family, a mother, father and colt, and ordered our food. Then we started our date. It was fun. We talked easily, and I never talk easily.
"Never,"
she answered, floating a little sandwich over to nibble at it.
"We firmly believe in anti-aggression. If the wasteland is ever to recover, we must change the way it operates. We have become a violent species, prone to anger and violence, and this must be changed."
Her voice was quiet, as it had been all night, but she sounded more sure about that statement than anything else I heard her say.
"But..."
I hummed for a second and took a drink of the fruity alcoholic beverage that we were served.
"Sometimes you can't not fight. There are raiders, and worse, sometimes..."
It was a shallow justification for me, but for many ponies it would be the truth. She nodded slowly and sighed.
"This is something we understand. We do not approve of violence and will mourn all death, but we understand it is inevitable. Not for us though. Mother has given us a great power. We are strong enough to live without violence, as you saw. So we will never strike another, an example to what can be done. That is our core principle."
"Even when the world wants to kill you?"
"Especially when the world wants to kill us."
What else could I say about that? It was amazing, beautiful, and really naive and stupid. Yet she spoke the words with such confidence it was hard not to believe her. It must have been hard for her, taken to some vats to be forcefully transformed, but into some sort of mind hive thing, then forcefully taken out of it into a world that seemed to despise her very existence. Yet there she was, determined to do no harm or die trying.
What?
A blush formed on my cheeks when I realized I'd been staring.
Sorry.
I quickly lowered my eyes.
It's just... you're insane.
A smile formed on my face. I felt giddy, and I wasn't sure why.
That is me.
It's a good thing. Taking a stand despite everything.
I said with my head raised so she could see my smile.
It's good. You're a better pony than I.
She gave me a blush and occupied her mouth with a sandwich. When she finally swallowed, she said,
Thank you. We appreciate the sentiment. We do not think we are a good pony, but thank you.
If Platinum Haze wasn't a good pony, I couldn't imagine who could possibly be one. With a bit of a giggle, I said,
Yeah, the alicorn who runs an orphanage for free and refuses to turn a hoof against her aggressors who hate her for no reason is not a good pony.
With a sly smile, I shook my head and then finished my soup.
You're the best pony I know. Which is not as much as a compliment as it should be. This city does not breed good ponies.
What about Serenity?
Haze smirked.
She's from Iglow.
Was she raised here?
Haze gave a little smile. To be honest, I wasn't sure.
She never told me. She doesn't talk much about her past.
So I was never sure why. Maybe I wasn't asking the right questions.
Wherever she grew up well. She is so smart. Have you seen her do magic? She doesn't even have her cutie mark. Not to mention she made a leg once, a cybernetic one, and it worked. She's just a filly. Fillies shouldn't be that talented. Should have seen her in the reconstruction center. There we are, in a hostile environment with no hope. But she doesn't seem fazed. She even told me to get some rest when we had the chance.
You must be really fond of her.
Haze smiled warmly, making me realize I'd been monologuing about how awesome my daughter was.
It is cute.
I had attempted to gather my thoughts by eating something, but I'd already finished my meal.
She's my daughter,
I said, blushing.
So I love her. I'm just bad at it after last time.
You mean Kharkov?
Fuck. I said that out loud, didn't I? And then she had to go and mention Kharkov. My two biggest failures in one nice little package. Now, if only some pony could bring up Wildfire too and let the my combined guilt drive me insane. More insane.
Not Kharkov?
She seemed to be able to read my pained expression.
Not Kharkov.
When Haze messed up that memory spell before, I had managed to stop her before she got to that memory. And thanks Celestia for that. But it would always come up. It seemed the more I ran away from Foundation, the more she haunted me. Maybe I should just accept her fate. But that was... I couldn't go back there. I took a heavy breath and closed my eye. Just needed to think about... something. Anything.
It's okay.
I felt Haze's hoof being laid atop mine.
You don't need to talk about it. We're sorry. When you're ready, though, we will always be there for you.
My eye opened and I saw Haze's. They were remarkable and beautiful. They shone a golden yellow hue and were slit down like a cat's, and they sparkled in the light of the restaurant. It was when I first saw her eyes that I started crushing on her. It was corny, but true. She was simply beautiful. Not just her eyes. Everything about her was made in a way that shined beauty and grace. Admittedly, she was not that graceful, but I didn't really care.
Thanks, I
blushed and looked down.
Too good for me. You deserve better.
But we desire you.
That was just cheesy, so I chuckled.
What? Did we say something wrong? We are quite serious. We have explained ourselves earlier, did we not? Why are you still laughing, Silver? Are you okay? Oh, we said something wrong, didn't we? We're sorry, Silver.
I leaned over the table to kiss her. It seemed really effective in stopping her nervous rambling.
Would you like dessert, ma'ams?
My kiss was halted halfway across the table, leaving me in an awkward and embarrassing position.
No!
I growled, hoping she'd go away.
But I insist.
Listen,
When I turned my head to choose a waitress out, I instead saw a green pony with a tight back mane. And a black cow pony hat. Sorry, not a pony. A mule.
Molly.
As I said her name, one of the Molly's ears flopped out from under her hat.
Hello, it's been a while.
Carefully I sat back in my stool, keeping my eyes trained on the Molly.
You know her?
Hayes seemed a bit shocked at both her arrival and my reaction.
Oh, we know each other, little dove,
Molly said, pushing her ear back into place.
Me and your little rat go way back.
A few weeks was hardly way back.
She did a job for me once, then stabbed me in the back.
My eyes went to Molly's side where her sawed-off shotgun hung. I remembered the video I saw the day before and tried my best not to piss herself off. The dress was new after all, and I'd hate to get blood on it.
If I remember, you had ponies stab me. Literally. And I did your job. I just did others' jobs too.
And killed Roy Mustang. Of course, she didn't know that. At least I hope she didn't.
What do you want, Molly?
Just this, my little rat. If you come into my home again, I'll send my cats to kill and eat you.
She lowered herself down and glared.
You're in my world here. And you weren't invited. When rats infest my world, I exterminate them.
Or send cats. She could at least get her metaphor right. That's right, I know what metaphor means.
Your status as a cybernetic freak means I can't attack you without reprisal. But you're stretching my patience here, Hired.
Let me finish my...
I tried to say meal, but she cut me off. For some reason I got the impression she didn't like me.
No.
With a hoof, she knocked the contents of the table onto the floor. That just was not necessary.
Leave now. Excuse us.
Hayes started to stand up and let her full impressive be seen. She absolutely towered over Molly.
We think you are being rude. We paid to eat, and we should be allowed to eat in peace. We humbly request we can finish our meal. Then we shall leave and never return. No!
Molly's hoof moved towards the shotgun. Time seemed to slow. When I turned on SATS, time actually slowed. Every other time I used my pip-buck in that manner, something went wrong, but this time she was close, and I had my hoofs. There was no way I was going to even let Molly point a gun in her direction. I selected her torso and slipped out of the spell. As if driven by instinct, my body slammed into Molly, sending us both to the ground. I managed to get the other hoof partially pinning her to the ground. She was fumbling for her shotgun though, and slippery. I couldn't pin her properly. There was a vague sense of screaming in the background, but when I fought I could only focus on my opponent. Even with me pressing against her, that shotgun of hers found its way to her mouth. As quickly as I could, I switched SATS on again and aimed for her shotgun. Falling out of it, my cybernetic hoof batted the shotgun to the side. The slug went off, of course, and slammed into my table. She aimed again, and I didn't have the position to hit it again. Grunting in annoyance, I rolled off Molly, letting her slug hit the air where I was seconds ago. My body slick with sweat already, and the finishers were going to be so mad about me ruining their dress.
Hired!
My eyes darted to Hayes. The father of the family sitting beside her was stabbing at her shield with a forehoof blade. Apparently Molly knew we were here and prepared for a fight. In the attack it looked like her dress was cut and her red wrap that hit her wings fell to the ground. She seemed unhurt, by the way, but everyone in the vicinity could see the wings bulges on her back. It didn't help the fight was drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant.
We need to leave!
She yelled over at me.
Yeah,
Something slammed into the bun my mane was tied into. I turned my head to see Molly there with her shotgun because I was an idiot and didn't take off my eye patch for the fight. She aimed her shotgun at me again, and I waited for the pain. Instead, I felt my body get light and my shoulder burn. The slug passed below me as I was lifted up in a magical field. A few seconds later I was dropped on Platinum Haze's back. She carefully pushed away the assassins away with her magic, casted invisibility over both of us, burst her wings through her dress-weakened fabric, and took to the air. The invisibility was confusing enough to have Molly and the assassin attack where we were, and even though the room's ceiling wasn't high, there was enough room to maneuver. My ride quickly flew to the exit. Some of the ponies inside ran away at the sound of the fight, others moved towards the conflict. Whatever the case, the exit was nearly empty by the time we got there.
Listen for the sound of flapping wings,
Molly ordered.
And the feeling of wind.
Good advice.
Thanks, hurry,
I whispered into where I assumed Haze's ear was. I wasn't really sure as I couldn't see her. It was not comforting to be floating in the air and not see anything underneath you. We flew through the doors to the main hall of the casino, which unfortunately made them swing wildly. There was a vague sound of noise behind us as we sped towards the exit, but I didn't pay attention. Thankfully, the hallways were high enough to fly unimpeded. The race lasted until we burst from the casino double doors and into the night. Looking up at the stars, I smiled a bit at them. That was until I started to move towards them.
No!
I nearly screamed as my heart started to race, and I wrapped my forelegs around Haze's neck to keep me safe.
Please don't!
With my eyes open, I could see the ground slowly shrinking below us, and still invisible, there was nothing between us. Just me and the ground. Falling.
Please go down!
We do not understand. We need...
I'm afraid of heights!
I blurted out, squeezing my eyes shut. It didn't help. I still could feel the fight. And I could feel myself getting higher. Fuck, Earth ponies should stay on the Earth, damn it!
Sorry.
As I felt out descent, relief filled me. That was better. Much better. Not enough to stop me from panicking or convince me to open my eyes.
We did not know.
When we reached the ground in front of the BS, I slowly got off her back and onto shaky hooves. I really hated heights. I blamed Pegasi for making other ponies yearn to take to the sky. It was just not needed. Yeah. Eventually I managed to calm my nerves enough to look up at Haze.
Sorry.
No, we are sorry. We should not have talked back to Molly. It caused a conflict.
She blushed.
We simply wanted to eat in peace. We are sorry we ruined the evening.
No, you didn't.
I chuckled.
I did. The clusterbuck that is my past likes to catch up with me so it can kick me in the face.
No, we...
Can we just kiss now?
A cool breeze blew my now tethered mane into my face, and I had to quickly brush it away to keep my eyes on Haze. She looked especially beautiful in the moonlight.
Certainly.
We leaned forward once more. My whole body felt tingly. This whole night had been great, barring the minor mess-up at the end. It reminded me that everything could work. I could get through my past, and maybe sometime in the future I could grow to love Haze. Not now, but it was a possibility I never thought I'd have after Wildfire died. This kiss meant everything. The final reassurance. The icing on the cake, the... Hired? Oh, come on. My brain snapped out of its bleary, haze-induced haze, and I looked towards the sound of the voice. A deep crimson pony walking out of the BS with a nasty metal left foreleg. I was just looking for you. Mayhem. The leader of the Mustangs. And he was looking for me so hard he ruined my kiss. Of course, since Haze's wings were free, she went invisible at the noise, making it look like I was trying to kiss the air. Which helped. A lot.
Why?
Very carefully I moved myself to make it look less like I was trying to kiss the air, and more like I was just taking an awkward step.
What do the Mustangs want with me?
You. He shook his head, walking forward slowly. He seemed strangely unarmed. Do you remember last time you were in town? You owe me a job, no questions asked, with absolute loyalty.
Shit. Yes, I remember,
I said bitterly.
What is it?
Come to my office tomorrow in the morning, the large crimson bug said with a sly grin. We'll talk then. It's good you're back. I hate to cash in so soon, but it is important. He laughed and started walking towards his casino. Good night, Hired. Sleep well. You'll need it. Hayes did not reappear until he was halfway down the street, and when she did, she was glaring down the street to wherever he went. As she glared, she said with the most vicious tone I've ever heard from her, "Stallions!" I wasn't sure if that was a rebuke of him, or all stallions, but I couldn't help but laugh.
Stallions!
I agreed wholeheartedly. Level up, new perk, terrifying presence. You have been using this perk since you left Mareford, so it was about time you got it officially. With it you can scare the shit out of just about any pony and get them to bend to your will. Hello and welcome back to Common Time with the Visual Pony, where I will remind you that you can support Pony&Wolf Productions through the links down in the description below. Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated, and it helps to keep the lights on around here. And you want to keep the lights on around here, don't you? Otherwise it gets dark and I will not be able to keep reading. Anyhow, I will not be able to keep talking this quickly for very long, so I'm feeling kind of like the Micro Machines man right now, and I realize that not a lot of you might know that, because it was kind of something from my childhood. Anyhow, let's get into the meat of this chapter, because, oh my god. I must say, I enjoyed this chapter for the most part. The content was okay. However, let me say this, and I've said this, I know, 1,000, if not 1,000,000, 100,000,000, 1,000,000,000 times by now. Why does every frickin' FalloutEquestria author think they have to get into a pissing contest with K-Cat? Stories like FalloutEquestria Pink Eyes and my very own FalloutEquestria Duty show that it is more than possible to, you know, write a decent FalloutEquestria story with chapters that are not over a certain length. This one was just a slog to go through, and you will see that in the behind the scenes video. This recording alone has taken, at this point we are at 3 hours, 9 minutes. And I am sorry guys, that is insane. Not to mention that I am fairly certain that either the author was drunk or the editors were frickin' asleep in this chapter. I liked the downtime of Hired and stuff. And I must agree, she might have wanted to, you know, clear stuff with Molly before she went to the alehouse. That would have been the better thing to do, but then again, that would have been the smart thing to do, and we know that Hired Gun is not a smart pony. But if I look at the writing in this one chapter alone, there are so many moments where there are extra words, wrong words, and all that shit. I left it in. I did not. For most of it, I did not mentally correct it. I left it in. So if you hear places where it sounds weird, where the sentence doesn't make much sense, this is how it is in the story. That is how it is in the written version of this story. And I have video proof of this because I recorded my screen while recording the story. I am Visual Pony. I hope this video finds you well in body and mind. And now I need to go calm down.
We here at Pony&Wolf Productions thank these amazing patrons of ours for their monthly support, without which all of this would not be possible. We sincerely appreciate it, and every dollar helps, is needed, and will be used to keep us going to produce audiobooks for your continued enjoyment. It is, now more than ever, important that you support your favorite creators if possible, due to YouTube changing in a way that is not very friendly to content creators. Especially small content creators, like us. In recent months, the names you see on screen have enabled Midnight and Visual Pony to keep going and only having to sell off part of their belongings to not end up on the street. As an incentive for everyone, Visual Pony has broken a vow and has promised to read and record FalloutEquestria, Murky number 7, should the monthly support reach $1,500. To be clear, this is the absolute minimum amount needed to keep the apartment and all bills paid without starving, while a production of this size is ongoing. The estimated time for this production would be 3 to 4 years, but people already said that Project Horizons was impossible to do, right? And now look who did it, so with Pony and Wolf, you know we can finish the job. For further information on how to support us, please have a look at the description of this video, as there are also other ways, like our merch store. Sincerely and forever yours, your Pony and Wolf team.